He built an empire from the sands of Miami, but somehow lost himself along the way. Isaac Torres, a 39-year-old millionaire CEO with a mansion overlooking the ocean, spends his life surrounded by success but haunted by a single memory: his sister, Elena, who died in a tragic boating accident 10 years ago. He never talks about it, never forgave himself. Then, one summer afternoon on South Beach, he sees a boy drawing waves in the sand, not for fun, but to raise money for his grandfather's medicine. The boy's name is Noah. His eyes carry the same fire Elena had. His smile, something about it is familiar. When Noah hands Isaac a sand painting signed N.E., Elena's exact initials, something cracks open. What happens next will challenge everything Isaac believes about fate, family, and forgiveness. As secrets emerge and a stranger threatens to take Noah away, Isaac must face a question he's never been brave enough to ask. Can a man who's built walls his entire life learn how to be a father? This isn't just a story about wealth. It's about legacy, redemption, and the quiet strength of a child who brings color back to a grieving man's life. Hit that subscribe button for more powerful, heart-tugging stories that remind us what really matters. Your next favorite story starts now. Isaac Torres didn't believe in omens, but something about the air that afternoon felt different. Miami's summer sun burned above the white-tipped surf like a relentless truth, but for once Isaac didn't notice. He walked the shoreline of South Beach in silence, his loafers discarded, the salty breeze tugging at his crisp linen shirt. His assistant had offered to call a car, but he'd waved her off. No entourage, no investors, no distractions, just him, the ocean, and the shadow that still followed him 10 years after it began. He used to love the beach, back when Elena was alive. His sister had once called the ocean her soul's compass, said the waves knew things the sky didn't. Isaac had never understood what she meant until the day the ocean took her. He paused near a lifeguard tower, pressing his hand into his pocket. The fabric brushed the edge of an old chain he still carried, Elena's necklace, the tiny coral charm she always wore. The guilt clung to him like salt on his skin. That day, she'd begged him not to cancel the trip. She insisted on piloting the boat herself, and when the storm rolled in, he'd frozen, just watched the horizon disappear. They found the wreckage 2 days later. They never found her. And Isaac had buried himself in skyscrapers ever since. Oceanfront Realty now owned half the high-rises along Biscayne Bay. He was listed in Forbes. He lived in Coconut Grove in a mansion no one visited, not even family, because there wasn't any left. Or so he thought. He was checking his watch, mentally rehearsing his pitch for the real estate conference tomorrow, when a burst of color in the sand caught his eye. A boy, no older than 11, was kneeling just ahead of him, fingers moving deftly through the shoreline as he crafted an elaborate sand drawing. Not a castle, like most kids would build. This was a picture. A wave, perfectly arched with light indentations that mirrored the foam of the sea. Around it, tiny symbols, stars, shells, suns, were etched with the tip of a broken stick. Curious, Isaac stepped closer. The boy didn't look up. His brow was furrowed in quiet concentration, lips slightly parted as he finished the last swirl of the wave. There was something peaceful about his focus, something almost sacred in the way he moved. Then, with the same stick, he traced 3 letters in the bottom corner of the piece. N.E. Isaac froze. He stared at the initials, blinking once, then again, as if that would somehow change what he was seeing. It wasn't just the art, it was the way the boy's hand curved around the stick, the tilt of his jaw, the mop of brown hair curling at the nape of his neck. It was Elena. The boy looked exactly like her. That's beautiful, Isaac said before he could stop himself. Startled, the boy looked up. His eyes were green, Elena's green, sea glass green, and for a moment Isaac felt his chest tighten so sharply it hurt to breathe. Thanks, the boy said, brushing sand from his palms. It's $5 if you want to take a picture. Isaac blinked. Excuse me? The boy nodded toward a plastic bucket nearby, where a handmade sign read, Flowers fade, art lives. Help my grandpa breathe. $5 per sand photo. Isaac stared at the sign, stunned. You're raising money for your grandfather? The boy nodded. He's got really bad lungs. Needs a machine to help him breathe at night. Mom used to draw in the sand like this before she... He stopped, suddenly self-conscious. I learned it from her. I'm Noah. Isaac crouched, eyes searching the boy's face. Noah. N-E? The boy shrugged, brushing a strand of hair from his brow. Noah Elena. She gave me her middle name. Said it was lucky. Isaac sat back on his heels, reeling. Breeze swept over them, scattering some of the drawing's edges. The wave trembled, then dissolved at the top. Noah didn't even flinch. He just began building it again. Do you do this often? Isaac asked quietly. Every weekend. Weekdays after school if I can. The hospital bills are killing us. My grandpa can't work anymore, and I don't have a lot of options. I'm 11. Nobody wants to hire a kid who only knows how to draw in sand. There was no bitterness in his voice, only fact, resignation. Something inside Isaac crumbled. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a $100 bill, then another, then 6 more. Here, he said, pressing the money gently into Noah's hand. That's not for the photo. That's because your art just saved something I thought I lost. Noah looked down at the bills, stunned. I can't take all this. Yes, you can, Isaac said softly. You already have. The boy tilted his head, confused. Isaac just smiled, trying to swallow the lump rising in his throat. I'll see you again, Noah, he said as he stood, his voice unsteady. Soon. And as he walked away, heart racing, memories flooding, something long dormant awakening in his chest, he knew the truth was far from over. This wasn't just a child with a talent. This was a connection. And maybe, just maybe, it was family. Isaac Torres couldn't sleep that night. Not even with the ocean breeze drifting through the open French doors of his second-floor bedroom, or the soft rhythm of waves breaking along Coconut Grove's shoreline. The city lights beyond the water twinkled like forgotten promises, still beautiful, but too far to touch. He stood by the glass, arms crossed, replaying every second of that moment on South Beach. Noah's voice, quiet but determined. His hands, stained with salt and sand, shaping beauty for strangers who barely noticed. And those letters, N-E, etched into wet earth like a ghost reaching back through time. He didn't know what rattled him more, the uncanny resemblance or the ache he felt when he walked away. He should have asked more questions. He should have stayed longer. Instead, he had come back here, back to this echoing mansion full of vaulted ceilings and polished silence, and sat for hours at the edge of his bed, clutching the coral charm Elena once wore around her neck. At sunrise, Isaac made a decision. He wouldn't wait for fate to drop more clues in his lap. He needed to find out who this boy really was, needed to know how a child who bore his sister's face and spirit ended up alone on a beach with nothing but sand and hope to protect him. By mid-morning, he was back on South Beach. This time in jeans and sneakers, his usual armor, suit and Rolex, left behind. But the shoreline was empty. No sand drawings, no plastic buckets, just tourists snapping photos and early joggers weaving through sunbathers. Isaac scanned every face, growing more anxious with each passing minute. Looking for someone? The voice came from a man in his 60s sitting under a large umbrella, sharpening conch shells into jewelry. His skin was sun-worn and leathery, his smile unreadable. Isaac stepped closer. Yesterday, there was a boy here, Noah, about 11, brown hair. He draws waves in the sand and sells them. The old man nodded slowly, setting down his tool. The flower boy with a soul like driftwood. Saw him pack up around noon yesterday. Said his grandfather was having a bad day. Happens sometimes. Do you know where he lives? The man hesitated, eyeing Isaac with growing suspicion. You a social worker? You look too polished to be asking questions like that. I'm not, Isaac said truthfully. But I knew someone who might have known his mother. Elena Torres. She passed years ago. Recognition sparked in the man's eyes. Your sister, the one who drowned? He asked quietly. Isaac nodded, surprised. Everyone in the Keys knew about her. She used to sketch seashells here with kids. Always wore that necklace. He gestured toward the coral charm now hanging over Isaac's collar. She said the sea listened better than most people. Isaac swallowed hard. She ever mention a child? The man shook his head. Not to me, but life's funny. It don't always leave footprints, but it leaves signs. Isaac exhaled, frustration tugging at him. Listen, the man added, more gently now. If you really want to find him, check Jackson Memorial. I overheard him telling a tourist that's where his grandfather goes. Lung problems, I think. Thank you, Isaac said, already dialing his assistant as he moved away. Don't thank me, the man called after him. Thank the tide. It brought you back. An hour later, Isaac stood in the cool, sterile hallway of Jackson Memorial Hospital, flanked by hand sanitizer dispensers and faded bulletin boards. He hadn't stepped foot in a hospital since Elena's death. The antiseptic air stirred up too many ghosts. But he pushed forward, stopping at the information desk. I'm looking for a patient. Elderly man, possibly being treated for advanced pulmonary disease. His grandson's name is Noah, about 11 years old, brown hair. The nurse at the desk frowned, typing. That's pretty vague, sir. Isaac leaned in. I don't know the last name, but I believe the boy's mother was Elena Torres. She may not be listed anywhere. I need to know if someone with those details exists. The nurse paused, glancing up at him with a softened expression. You're lucky I'm nosy. One of our pulmonology nurses mentioned a boy who brings sand drawings to cheer up the staff on Tuesdays. That sound right? Isaac's breath caught. Yes. She pointed down the corridor. Room 542B. The boy's with his grandfather right now. Isaac walked slowly, pulse hammering. At the end of the hallway, the door was slightly ajar. Inside, he saw Noah sitting on a chair beside the bed, holding a paper fan decorated with a painted wave. The old man lying in the bed coughed softly, his breathing assisted by a humming oxygen machine. Grandpa, Noah said, if we can save enough by the end of summer, maybe we can get that used compressor Ms. Ruby mentioned. Then you won't need to come back here so much. The old man gave a tired smile. You're a good boy, Noah, but we can't count on miracles. Noah looked down. Then I'll just have to work harder. Isaac couldn't take another second of watching through the door. He knocked gently. Both heads turned. Noah's eyes widened. I didn't mean to intrude, Isaac said, stepping in. I saw your drawing yesterday. I wanted to say thank you. It reminded me of someone I loved very much. The old man sat up slightly, coughing. Friend of yours? Isaac looked at Noah, then back at the man. No, he said softly. Family, I think. Noah tilted his head. What do you mean? Isaac stepped closer, voice trembling. I think you might be my nephew. And in that quiet hospital room, where machines whispered and hearts broke without noise, something ancient and tender cracked open inside Isaac's chest. He wasn't walking away this time. Noah didn't speak right away. He sat frozen in the vinyl chair beside his grandfather's hospital bed, his small hand still holding the painted paper fan, knuckles white with tension. His wide eyes searched Isaac's face, trying to decipher what kind of man he was, stranger, liar, or something else entirely. Isaac stood there awkwardly, not knowing whether to sit or kneel, whether to say more or give space. The silence in the room swelled, punctuated only by the steady hiss of the oxygen machine and the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The old man cleared his throat, his voice raspy. "You said... You think he's your nephew?" Isaac nodded slowly, his gaze softening. "Yes, sir. My name is Isaac Torres. I had a sister, Elena. She passed away in a boating accident 10 years ago. Before she died, she didn't tell anyone she was pregnant. But yesterday I saw this boy on the beach and—" "You saw him drawing," the old man finished, his tired eyes narrowing. "He draws like her." Isaac blinked. "So, it's true?" The man shifted slightly in bed, struggling to sit upright. "My name's Samuel Reyes. Elena came to stay with me after she left everything behind. Said she couldn't go back to her family, that they wouldn't believe her. She never mentioned your name. Not once." Isaac felt a quiet shame climb up his spine. "She was right," he murmured. "I didn't believe her when she said she was pregnant. I thought—" He broke off, unable to finish. Noah's voice, soft but clear, filled the space. "You're her brother?" Isaac turned toward him, his heart aching at the look of guarded hope in the boy's expression. "Yes," he said gently, "I'm your uncle." Noah sat back, like the words needed space to land. "My mom. She didn't talk about her family much. Just said it hurt too much to remember." Isaac felt his chest tighten. "I didn't know she had you. If I had, things would have been different." Noah shrugged with the resignation of someone who'd grown up hearing adults say they would have done better if only they'd known. "She did her best. Grandpa helped. We didn't have much, but—" His voice trailed off and he looked at his grandfather, whose face was pale and tired behind the oxygen tube. Isaac crouched beside him, leveling his eyes with Noah's. "Your mom mattered to me, Noah. She was everything good in my childhood. And now, knowing she left behind someone like you," his voice cracked slightly, "I just want to know you, help you, if you'll let me." Noah looked down, chewing the inside of his cheek. "We don't need help," he whispered. "We've been fine." Isaac didn't push. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the coral charm, Elena's necklace. He held it out, palm open. "This belonged to her. She wore it the last time I saw her. I kept it all these years, hoping I'd find a way to make peace with what happened. Maybe now I can." Noah's eyes went wide. His fingers hovered above the necklace but didn't touch. "She used to let me hold it when I had nightmares," he said, his voice barely audible. "Said the ocean lived inside it." Isaac smiled softly. "That sounds like her." The moment hung tenderly between them, broken only when Samuel began to cough violently, his chest heaving. Noah dropped the fan and rushed to his side, helping adjust the mask. Isaac jumped up to press the nurse's call button, instincts taking over. A nurse entered moments later, brisk and efficient. "He's okay," she said after checking the monitors. "Just a stress cough. He needs rest." She glanced at Isaac. "Only immediate family from now on." Isaac nodded. "Understood." Once the nurse left, Noah helped Samuel settle back against the pillows, tucking the blanket gently under his arms. His movements were careful, practiced. Too practiced for a child. Isaac cleared his throat. "Noah, where do you stay when you're not here?" "At the apartment above the mechanic shop on Coral Way. Miss Ruby owns it. She lets us stay there when Grandpa's out of the hospital." Isaac took note. "Would it be okay if I stopped by tomorrow? Maybe brought some dinner?" Noah hesitated, glancing at Samuel. The old man gave a faint nod. "Okay," Noah said, but nothing fancy. Grandpa can't eat rich stuff. Isaac chuckled gently. Got it, no caviar. Just tacos? Noah cracked a smile, the first one since they'd met. Tacos are always good. As Isaac stood to leave, he looked back one more time, memorizing the sight. Noah curled up beside his grandfather, the coral charm now hanging from his neck. It was like watching a ghost find a place to rest. Back in the hallway, Isaac leaned against the wall, his breath catching. He felt something shift inside him, quietly, permanently. This wasn't guilt. It wasn't charity. It was the beginning of something sacred. A second chance, carried on a breeze that smelled faintly of salt and sand. Tomorrow, he would return, and this time, he wouldn't let history repeat itself. Isaac returned to South Beach the next morning, but not to admire the shoreline or walk beneath the rising sun. He came with purpose. In one hand, he held a modest brown paper bag filled with warm breakfast tacos from a corner shop near Coconut Grove. In the other, a stack of paperwork, hospital bills Samuel Reyes would never see, thanks to a donation Isaac had quietly made the night before. Anonymous, just like Elena would have wanted. He pulled up to the old mechanic's shop on Coral Way, parking his sleek black Tesla behind a row of rusted-out sedans. The building looked like it had survived 3 hurricanes and a fire or two. Paint peeled from the sign that read Ruby's Auto, and a crooked staircase led up to a small second-floor apartment with mismatched blinds and a flickering porch light that hadn't figured out the sun was already up. As he climbed the stairs, Isaac's chest tightened. Not with anxiety, but something older, deeper. It was like walking through an old memory that hadn't yet made peace with him. He knocked. Noah answered the door in pajama pants and a faded t-shirt with a cartoon shark on the front. His hair stuck out in soft brown tufts, and his feet were bare on the cool linoleum floor. Behind him, Isaac caught a glimpse of cramped living space. A fold-out couch, a small kitchen, and a wall full of sketches taped up with painter's tape. Swirls of sand, waves, palm trees. The echo of Elena's talent lived in every brushstroke. "You came," Noah said, as if still not convinced adults ever followed through. "I said I would," Isaac replied gently. "Hope you're hungry." Noah nodded, stepping aside to let him in. "Grandpa's still at the hospital." Isaac set the food on the chipped counter and looked around. "You stay here alone?" Noah shrugged, sitting on the stool nearest the counter. "Most nights. Miss Ruby checks in, and sometimes she leaves empanadas. I lock the door. I'm used to it." Isaac took a slow breath, pushing back the quiet fury that threatened to surface. No 11-year-old should be used to being alone. "You shouldn't have to be," Isaac said softly. Noah unwrapped a taco and took a bite, his eyes never leaving Isaac. "Why do you care now?" It wasn't said with malice, just honest curiosity, and Isaac respected him too much to answer with a lie. "Because I didn't before," Isaac said, "and that's something I have to live with. But now that I know the truth, now that I've met you, I can't walk away." Noah swallowed hard, his voice small but firm. "People always walk away." Isaac leaned forward on his elbows, folding his hands. "Then let me prove I'm not one of them." For a moment, Noah didn't say anything. He just nodded slightly and kept eating. As they sat in the quiet, a photo caught Isaac's eye. It was pinned above the microwave, half covered by a grocery list. He stood and gently pulled it free. It was a picture of Elena. She was younger, her hair tied in a loose bun, cheeks flushed with laughter. She was holding a baby, tiny, wrapped in a seafoam green blanket, nose scrunched like he was dreaming of sunshine. Isaac blinked back tears. "That's her." Noah looked up. "That was the only photo we had until Grandpa found a few more in a box last year. He said she never liked being in pictures. Said she thought memories lived better in people's hearts than in frames." Isaac smiled sadly. She always said that. Drove me crazy. Noah tilted his head. What was she like? Before everything? Isaac sat down again, his voice turning warm. She was wild in the best way. She sang too loud in the car. She painted our walls with poetry when she was angry. She was stubborn and kind and never did what people expected. She sounds like a superhero. She was, Isaac whispered, and she would have been so proud of you. Noah looked down, his fingers tightening around his taco. I don't remember her laugh. Isaac reached out without thinking, placing a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. Then I'll remember it for both of us. They sat in silence, two grieving hearts beginning to find rhythm in each other's presence. Then, with a hesitant smile, Noah stood up. Want to see something? Isaac followed him to the small room off the kitchen. The bed was unmade, but the floor was spotless. On one side of the wall were hand-drawn sketches. On the other, arranged carefully in a shoebox lid, were old seashells, smooth stones, and one yellowed note. Isaac picked it up, his eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. To Noah. When the tide rises, let it carry your dreams to shore. Love, Mom. It wasn't signed with her name, but with 2 letters. His breath caught. I saw that in your drawing, he whispered. Noah nodded. I thought it meant nothing until you said it yesterday. Isaac held the note to his chest for a moment. It means everything. Outside, waves crashed in the distance, far from the tight corners of the apartment. But inside, something had shifted. The boy didn't say much else. He didn't have to. Because for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone. Isaac stood at the foot of Noah's bed that night, watching him sleep with one arm draped over a sketch pad and the other clutching a worn, plush dolphin. The boy had fallen asleep mid-doodle, eyelids fluttering as if dreams and memories were fighting for space behind them. It was nearly midnight, but Isaac couldn't bring himself to leave. Not yet. Earlier that evening, after returning from the hospital, Noah had asked shyly if Isaac wanted to stay for dinner. Ruth had prepared arroz con pollo, and Isaac had insisted on helping her set the table. It had been decades since he'd sat at a table like that, cramped, noisy, filled with mismatched chairs and even more mismatched laughter. It felt foreign, and it felt like home. Ruth had observed him the way only caretakers could, with quiet, discerning eyes. She'd listened as Isaac made Noah laugh, watched the way the boy leaned toward him without even realizing it. After dinner, she had pulled Isaac aside. "Whatever you're doing," she said softly, "keep doing it. That boy hasn't smiled like that in a long time." Isaac had nodded, emotion swelling in his chest like tidewater threatening to breach a seawall. "I want to do more." She gave him a long look, then simply said, "Then do." Now, as he carefully pulled the sketch pad from under Noah's arm, he noticed what the boy had drawn. It wasn't the usual waves or dolphins. It was a 2-story house, palm trees lining the path, and a porch with 2 figures, an older man in a rocking chair and a boy with a sandcastle bucket. Next to them stood another figure, taller, stronger, holding the boy's hand. Isaac stared at it for a long moment, his throat tightening. The next morning, he was waiting at the hospital before visiting hours began. He'd barely slept. As the sun crept over the city and bathed the hospital in pale orange light, Isaac sipped lukewarm coffee in the waiting room of Jackson Memorial, rehearsing his words like a man about to deliver a speech he hadn't prepared for. When he was finally allowed in, Samuel was sitting up in bed, oxygen still tethered to his nose, his skin sallow but eyes sharp. The nurse had warned Isaac that his condition was improving, but slowly. "Mr. Reyes," Isaac began, stepping inside quietly. Samuel looked up and narrowed his eyes. "You again." "I'm sorry to drop in uninvited," Isaac said, placing a small brown paper bag on the side table, "but I figured even miracles like you might get tired of hospital pancakes." Samuel gave a grunt that was somewhere between suspicion and gratitude. "That depends. You bring cafecito?" Isaac smiled. "Extra sweet. Just like my abuela made it." Samuel didn't smile, but he accepted the cup. "I came to talk," Isaac said after a pause, "about Noah." The older man took a long sip before replying. "You gave him money yesterday, paid for my meds this morning. You planning to buy your way into his life?" The question wasn't cruel, just direct, like Elena. Isaac felt the impact of it like a punch to the ribs. "No," he said quietly. "I'm planning to stay in his life, if you'll let me." Samuel arched a brow. "And why would I let some stranger, some billionaire, decide what's best for my grandson?" Isaac took a step closer. "Because I'm not a stranger, and because Noah's not just a boy I met on the beach." He reached into his pocket and unfolded the letter he'd found in the hospital bag, the one with Elena's handwriting. He handed it to Samuel without a word. Samuel took his time reading it. When he finished, his hands trembled. "She didn't tell me," he whispered, voice cracking. "She never told me you were the father." "I didn't know," Isaac said softly. "Not until yesterday." Samuel looked away, pain etched into the lines of his face. "She was ashamed. Thought you'd deny it, that you'd call him a mistake. I would have, back then," Isaac admitted, voice raw. "I was a different man." Samuel's eyes met his, searching. "Are you?" Isaac nodded slowly. "I lost my sister. I lost my soul for a while too. But that boy, he's brought something back I thought I'd buried with her." Samuel sighed, the weight of 10 years settling into his chest. "He's all I have. He's all I have too," Isaac said quietly, "even if I didn't know it until now." They sat in silence, the hospital machines humming around them. Finally, Samuel spoke. "He needs stability, not just a checkbook and promises." "I know. He needs someone who shows up." "I will." Another silence, then Samuel looked out the window. "He likes tacos, but he hates cilantro." Isaac let out a soft chuckle. "Noted." Samuel turned back. "If you break his heart, I'll find a way to haunt you." "I wouldn't expect anything less." They both smiled, and it was the first real bridge between them. That afternoon, Isaac returned to the apartment and found Noah waiting on the steps. "Did you talk to Grandpa?" "I did." "What did he say?" Isaac ruffled his hair gently. "He said I can carry the buckets next time." Noah grinned, eyes lighting up. For the first time in years, Isaac Torres didn't feel like a man running from ghosts. He felt like someone walking home. By the end of the week, Isaac's once silent mansion in Coconut Grove had found its voice. It wasn't in the echo of business calls or the hush of expensive leather shoes across marble floors. It was in the clatter of mismatched forks, the playful splash of bath water, the thud of small feet darting down hallways that had gone unused for years. And, at the center of it all, there was Noah, his messy hair damp from a too-long bath, wearing a t-shirt 3 sizes too big, humming while sketching superheroes at the granite kitchen island. Isaac leaned on the counter, his sleeves rolled up, studying a recipe on his phone like it was a legal contract. He'd never cooked a real meal in his life, unless you counted grilled cheese in college, which he didn't. Tonight, though, was different. "Okay," he muttered, holding up a packet of tortillas like they were the final piece of a jigsaw puzzle. "Tacos. We can do this." Noah glanced up from his sketch pad. "You've never made tacos before?" Isaac raised an eyebrow. "Do I look like a taco expert?" Noah considered him, eyes narrowing in mock seriousness. "You look like you own taco experts." Isaac laughed, genuinely, wholeheartedly, the sound surprising both of them. "Fair." He turned his attention to the skillet where ground beef sizzled with the enthusiasm of a small fire. It smelled right, at least. But when he tried flipping the tortillas with a spatula, They slipped, splattered, and landed half on the burner, half on the floor. "Hot!" Isaac yelped, stepping back. "Okay, no one touch that tortilla. It's a casualty of war." Noah laughed so hard he dropped his pencil. "You're worse than Grandpa in the kitchen." Isaac shook his head, smiling as he retrieved the fallen tortilla with tongs. "I'll take that as a compliment. Want me to show you?" Noah offered, hopping off his stool. "Grandpa says the trick is to fold with the grain of the tortilla." "The grain?" "Yeah, I don't really know what that means, but I think it just means not upside down." Isaac handed over the tortillas, watching as Noah demonstrated with quick, practiced hands. "Like this," he said, voice proud. "Then you use foil to keep them warm. And don't put too much cheese or it explodes." "You should have warned me before the cheese explosion." Noah smirked, then turned serious. "You're really trying, huh?" Isaac paused. The air shifted slightly. "Yeah, I really am." They ate at the kitchen island, side by side, tacos in hand and salsa smudges on their plates. Isaac had never eaten a meal so slowly, not because of etiquette, but because every bite, every glance toward the boy beside him felt like reclaiming something he didn't know he'd lost. "Can I stay here again tomorrow?" Noah asked suddenly, not quite meeting Isaac's eyes. Isaac set down his taco. "You don't have to ask. This is your home, too." Noah hesitated. "Even when Grandpa gets out of the hospital?" "Especially then." There was silence for a moment. Then Noah nodded, lips pressed tightly together like he was keeping something fragile inside. Later, after dinner was cleared and Noah was in the den watching cartoons, curled into the plush couch like he'd always belonged, Isaac stepped out onto the back patio. The ocean breeze ruffled the white curtains as he stood looking out over the water, the moonlight reflecting off the waves like a memory that refused to fade. He pulled out his phone and dialed Ruth. "How's he doing?" she asked immediately. "Better," Isaac said softly. "I tried making tacos tonight." "God help you," he chuckled. "He saved them." "I'm not surprised. That boy can make $1 and a dinner out of anything." Isaac grew quiet. "Thank you for trusting me." "I didn't," Ruth said bluntly. "Not at first, but Noah did, and I follow his lead more than you think." He exhaled. "Ruth, there's something I found in Samuel's things. A letter from Elena." There was a long pause on the line. "You read it?" "I did. She never told me." "No," Ruth said, her voice softening. "She didn't want to burden you. She thought you had your world, and she didn't think she'd fit into it anymore. She never gave me the chance. You never asked for it." Isaac closed his eyes. That truth hurt, but he deserved it. "I'm trying to change that now. She'd have wanted that. But Noah, he's had a lot of grown-ups make promises and disappear. I won't be one of them." "You better not be," Ruth replied quietly, "because that boy's starting to believe in you." Isaac ended the call and stayed outside, listening to the sound of waves folding into shore. Inside, Noah had fallen asleep on the couch, one hand still clutching the TV remote, the other resting on the open page of his sketchbook. It was another drawing. This one of a tall man and a boy standing on a balcony, looking out over the ocean. The man was smiling. And Isaac, with tears quietly pooling in the corners of his eyes, realized he was too. The scent of antiseptic and the low hum of medical monitors filled the air as Isaac stepped into Samuel's hospital room the next morning. The walls were bare, the window cracked open slightly to let in Miami's humid breeze. Noah sat cross-legged in the armchair by the bed, sketching quietly, his face pale but calm. He'd insisted on coming today. Isaac gently placed a bag of fresh mango slices and a new sketch pad on the table. "For when you get tired of drawing on napkins," he said softly. Noah looked up, offering a small, grateful smile. "Thanks." He glanced at the bed. "They said Grandpa might be awake today." Isaac nodded. "He's stable. That's good news." For a while they sat in silence, the kind of silence that didn't feel empty. Isaac watched the slow rise and fall of Samuel's chest, and something inside him stirred. Guilt, maybe, or a delayed sense of duty. Eventually, Noah stretched and wandered down the hall to get water, leaving Isaac alone with the man who, without ever knowing it, had raised his nephew. He stood, walked to the dresser, and opened the top drawer, looking for something practical, lotion, chapstick maybe, but what he found instead was an old leather pouch, cracked at the edges. It had Elena's handwriting on the flap. Isaac stared at it, his breath catching. Inside, folded neatly, was a letter addressed to him. Isaac. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't find the words while I was alive, but I needed you to know. His fingers trembled as he opened it. I didn't plan to keep anything from you. I was going to tell you about Noah. That night, before the boat, I was going to say everything, but the storm came fast. I made a choice. I didn't want to worry you before the conference. I thought I'd have more time. Noah is yours, Isaac. He always was. I know you've been told for years you couldn't be a father, and maybe that truth made you shut that door completely, but miracles don't wait for permission. He was mine for a while, but I always hoped, deep down, one day he'd be yours too. If you're holding this, please don't let him go. Tears slipped from Isaac's eyes before he could stop them. He pressed the letter to his chest, crumpling its edges in his grip. He remembered that night vividly, the storm, the panicked calls, the way he'd blamed himself for not stopping her from sailing, but never, not once, had he imagined she'd been carrying more than grief. A son. His son. Are you okay? Noah's voice was soft, hesitant. He stood in the doorway, holding a paper cup of water. Isaac blinked, swiped at his eyes quickly. I found something your mom left behind. Noah walked slowly over, looking down at the letter in Isaac's hand. She used to write in those at night, he said, before bed. Grandpa said she talked to someone who wasn't there. Was that you? Isaac nodded slowly, unable to find words. Noah didn't ask to read the letter. He just sat beside him on the edge of the bed, their shoulders barely touching. My mom told me stories about you, he said eventually. She said you were brave and smart, and you always believed in things, even when no one else did. Isaac's voice cracked. I stopped believing in a lot after she died. Noah looked up at him, his eyes strikingly familiar, Elena's and his own, all at once. I think maybe she believed enough for both of you. A long silence fell between them. Finally, Isaac said, I should have known. I should have looked for the truth. She didn't want anyone to feel guilty, Noah said quietly. She just wanted people to be better. That's what she always said. The curtain shifted slightly with the breeze. Outside, a storm cloud hovered in the distance, but inside the room, the atmosphere had shifted. Warmer, clearer. I want to do right by you, Isaac said, voice barely above a whisper. Not because I feel bad, but because you deserve it, because you're my family. Noah's eyes welled up, but he didn't look away. So, does that mean I'm staying? Isaac didn't hesitate this time. Yes, if you'll have me. Noah nodded slowly. I think Mom would like that. They sat in silence again, but this time it felt like a beginning. When Ruth arrived that afternoon, Isaac met her in the hallway and handed her the letter. She read it silently, tears pooling in her eyes. She really did try to tell you, Ruth said. She just never made it. I know, Isaac replied, but I'm here now. She'd be proud, Ruth said gently. But remember, Noah's not just a second chance. He's a person. He'll need more than a roof and a bed. He needs someone who stays. I intend to, Isaac answered firmly. As he returned to the hospital room, he saw Noah carefully adjusting the blanket on Samuel's bed. There was a gentleness to it, instinctual, thoughtful, just like Elena. For the first time in years, Isaac felt like he wasn't living in the shadow of grief. He was walking toward the light, and the boy in that room? He was the reason why. The following morning, Isaac stood at the marble kitchen island of his Coconut Grove home, watching the sunlight spill in through the tall windows. The beach shimmered just beyond the glass, and inside, the quiet hum of the espresso machine softened the tension tightening in his chest. Noah sat at the table nearby, carefully sketching out an idea for a mural. The boy had found a rhythm in the house, his steps lighter, his laughter more frequent. Isaac had even begun adjusting his schedule, carving out mornings and evenings just to be there when Noah needed him. But peace, Isaac knew too well, never lingered long when the past hadn't finished its reckoning. That reckoning arrived with a knock. Ruth opened the door to a man dressed in worn jeans, sunglasses perched too carefully on his nose. He introduced himself with too much confidence. "My name is Miguel," the man said, stepping into the sunlit foyer as if he belonged there. "I'm Noah's father." Isaac froze, his body stiffening like stone. Noah looked up from his drawing, his pencil still in midair. Ruth stepped forward, placing herself instinctively between the man and the boy. "Excuse me? I'm here to see my son," Miguel continued, sliding off his glasses to reveal piercing dark eyes that flicked briefly toward Noah, then back to Isaac. "You must be the man pretending to be his guardian." Isaac took a breath that felt like fire in his lungs. "I don't know who you are, but—" "I have every legal right," Miguel interrupted smugly. "Victoria and I were together when she got pregnant. I have proof." Noah had gone pale. "You're not my dad," he whispered, voice cracking. Isaac stepped closer to the boy. "Noah, it's okay. You don't have to talk to him if you don't want to." Miguel chuckled condescendingly. "Of course you're scared, kid. They've been feeding you lies, but I've got paperwork, custody claim, filed this morning." He handed over a manila envelope, thick with documents that reeked of opportunism. Isaac scanned the top sheet. Court-stamped, official, real. Ruth took the file from his hands, her face tight with fury. "I'll have the lawyers review this, immediately." Miguel shrugged. "I'll be back tomorrow, and when I come back, I'm not leaving without him." With that, he turned and walked out, the sound of the door closing like a slap across Isaac's face. Noah was shaking. "He's lying. I've never seen him before." Isaac knelt beside him, placing a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. "I believe you, but we have to prove it." "Why is he doing this?" Noah asked, voice rising, frightened. "We don't even have anything. Why now?" "Because of me," Isaac thought bitterly. "Because people see a mansion and assume it's a prize to steal." Ruth crouched beside them. "We'll fight this. Together." That night, Isaac paced the edge of his office, his jaw locked tight. He'd made calls. Legal, private, strategic. Everything was in motion. But none of it settled the gnawing ache in his chest. He looked at the sand art Noah had made for him earlier that week, a simple wave with his name scrawled in small letters underneath. It rested on his bookshelf like a vow. Isaac turned to his phone and dialed the one person he hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Elliot?" he said, when the voice answered. "I need a favor. Quiet, fast, and thorough. I need to find out everything about a man named Miguel Vargas. Claims to be Noah's father." "Is this about Elena's son?" Elliot asked cautiously. "I thought he—" "It's complicated," Isaac replied, "but I'm not losing him. Not to a fraud." By morning, Elliot delivered. Miguel Vargas had a string of petty offenses, had never lived in Florida during Elena's pregnancy, and had recently launched a non-profit linked to real estate scams. "Bottom feeder," Elliot confirmed. Saw a headline about your charitable fund and got ideas. Isaac stared out the window. Then I want him exposed. Legally, publicly, no gray areas. He turned from the window and found Noah standing quietly at the door, holding the morning's newspaper. A small, blurry photo had been printed beside an article about Oceanfront Realty's upcoming Miami conference. Isaac's name was bolded, and right next to it? "Is that him?" Noah asked. "That man?" Isaac walked over. The image was grainy but unmistakable. Miguel, outside a courthouse holding the folder like a trophy. Noah's voice was small. "He's trying to take me so he can be on the news." Isaac looked him square in the eye. "And I promise you, that's not going to happen." "How do you know?" "Because I'm not going to stop until the whole truth comes out," Isaac said, his voice full of conviction. "Because your mom believed in me, and because I believe in you." Noah looked up, tears welling. "I don't want to lose you." Isaac knelt, gripping his shoulders gently. "You're not going to. You're my family. That means I fight for you, every time." In that moment, everything shifted. Not just in Noah's eyes, but in Isaac's soul. This wasn't about obligation anymore. It was about love. Real, unshakable love. The kind that storms couldn't drown, lies couldn't fake, and no imposter could ever steal. Tomorrow, he'd stand in court. But tonight, he sat with Noah, hand in hand, beneath the soft Miami sky, silently preparing for the battle that would define everything. The wind off Biscayne Bay was unusually strong that night, rattling the patio doors of Isaac's waterfront home as if trying to echo the storm building inside his heart. The meeting with his legal team had ended with cautious optimism. They had evidence of fraud, proof that Miguel's claim was manufactured, and a plan to dismantle it piece by piece in court. But that did little to soothe the unease curling in Isaac's gut. Noah had gone quiet again. After dinner, he'd excused himself early and disappeared into the guest room upstairs, the one slowly filling with art supplies, storybooks, and quiet traces of boyhood joy. But tonight, the silence had returned, heavy, hollow. Isaac stood in the hallway, hesitating at the cracked door. He could hear the rustle of bed sheets, a sniffle barely concealed, and then a soft voice, almost a whisper. "Mom said she'd never leave either." The words pierced Isaac before he even stepped inside. Noah sat up in bed, hugging his knees to his chest. The lamp beside him cast long shadows across the room, making the boy seem even smaller, vulnerable, heartbreakingly alone. Isaac stepped in slowly, his voice tender. "Couldn't sleep?" Noah wiped his eyes quickly. "I'm okay." But the tremble in his voice said otherwise. Isaac sat at the edge of the bed, carefully, unsure if his presence would bring comfort or just remind the boy of another adult who might disappear. "You know, I used to lie awake too, after I lost my sister," he began, his voice low and thick with emotion. "Not because I was scared, but because I couldn't stop hearing the things I didn't get to say." Noah looked up at him, blinking back tears. "Like what?" Isaac took a breath, the kind that scraped against old regrets. "Like how sorry I was, for not stopping her that day, for not being there enough when it really mattered." The room grew still. Noah stared at the bedsheet. "I don't remember much about her, just that she smiled a lot, but sometimes her eyes looked really sad." Isaac felt the tears burning behind his own eyes. "Your mom had this quiet strength. She wouldn't let people see how tired she was, but I saw it, and I ignored it. I told myself she'd be fine." A long pause passed between them. Then, Noah asked the question that shattered every defense Isaac had built. "Are you going to leave too?" Isaac's chest ached. "No, but you have your work and your company and people who need you. "I need you, Noah," Isaac said, his voice trembling but firm. "I didn't know it until I met you, but I do. More than I've needed anything in a long, long time." Noah looked at him then, really looked, like a boy trying to decide if it was safe to believe in hope again. "What if they make you go?" he whispered. "The people in suits, or the courts, or someone richer, or better." Isaac leaned in closer, taking the boy's small hand in his own. "Listen to me," he said softly. "No one, no judge, no board member, no liar in a courtroom is going to stop me from being here for you. I will fight, I'll show up, and I will never walk away." The silence between them wasn't empty now. It was full of unspoken truths, of something beginning to take root. Trust. Noah didn't say anything at first, but slowly, cautiously, he slid across the bed and leaned against Isaac's side, just enough for Isaac to wrap his arm gently around the boy's shoulders. "I keep having this dream," Noah murmured. "I'm on the beach, and I see Mom. She's drawing in the sand again. But when I run to her, the waves wash everything away." Isaac closed his eyes, heart breaking open. "Then we'll draw it again, together," he whispered. "We'll build new memories, ones the waves can't touch." For the first time since Victoria's letter, since the revelation of who Noah really was, Isaac didn't feel like a man patching over his guilt with promises. He felt like a father. And not in the legal sense. In the soul, deep, unshakable way that comes from choosing to stay, even when it hurts, even when it's hard. Later that night, as Noah drifted off to sleep beside him, Isaac sat in the dark, replaying the boy's question. "Are you going to leave too?" He looked around the room, at the little socks on the floor, at the sketch of the wave, still taped beside the bed, at the worn teddy bear that had traveled with Noah from the shelter to this home by the sea. And then he whispered a promise, just to the night. "I didn't save him. He saved me." Tomorrow, the battle for custody would intensify. But tonight, Isaac Torres stayed where he was most needed. Not as a CEO, but as family. The next morning, Miami buzzed with the usual coastal rhythm, horns blaring, palms swaying in humid air, tourists snapping pictures near Ocean Drive murals. But Isaac Torres wasn't thinking about the city. His mind was in one place, a courtroom. The tension in the waiting area of the Miami-Dade family court was thick enough to slice. Isaac sat silently beside Noah and Mr. Reyes, his attorney, fingers steepled under his chin. Across from them sat Miguel Rivera, cocky in his borrowed suit, legs crossed as if this were just another casual business arrangement. A woman with a phone camera lingered in the back, likely a tabloid plant. This wasn't just a hearing about guardianship anymore. It was war, over truth, over dignity, over one boy's chance at stability. Noah shifted nervously in his seat. Isaac noticed and leaned over gently. "Hey, you okay?" Noah nodded slowly but whispered, "What if they believe him?" Isaac touched his shoulder. "Truth has a way of holding up, even when lies scream louder. We've got this." Their names were called. The courtroom itself felt colder than expected, its walls lined with Florida state seals and the judge's elevated desk looming like a cliff. Judge Ramirez was an older woman with salt and pepper hair and a sharp gaze that didn't miss a thing. She read through a stack of case files before glancing up. "Mr. Rivera," she began, "you filed for paternal rights over Noah Santiago, claiming to be his biological father. However, your documentation lacks credible support. Do you have anything further to present today?" Miguel smiled, smugly confident. "Your Honor, I have multiple online photos, a note allegedly written by Victoria, and witness testimony from two people who knew us both years ago." Reyes stood promptly. "Objection. The photos are public social media images." The note is unverified, and the witnesses are former cellmates. Judge Ramirez frowned. I'll allow the testimony, but proceed cautiously, Mr. Rivera. Then the door opened. Charlotte, Noah's social worker, entered carrying a sealed envelope. She approached the bench and whispered something to the clerk, who handed it to the judge. Your Honor, she said, the results of the emergency DNA test requested yesterday. The court granted permission due to the sensitive timeline and media exposure. Miguel visibly paled. Judge Ramirez tore open the envelope and scanned the single sheet inside, her lips pressed into a thin line. This court finds with 0.0% probability that Mr. Miguel Rivera is the biological father of Noah Santiago, she said flatly. A murmur swept through the small crowd. Isaac didn't cheer. He didn't flinch. He only reached for Noah's hand and squeezed it firmly. Miguel stood abruptly. This is rigged. The system always protects the rich. Enough, the judge said, slamming her gavel once. Mr. Rivera, you may consider yourself dismissed. Further harassment of this child or his guardian will result in criminal charges. Miguel was escorted out, still yelling. The silence that followed felt sacred. Then, Judge Ramirez turned her attention to Isaac. Mr. Torres, it appears you've not only taken responsibility for Noah's medical care and housing, but have also submitted legal documentation showing you're the maternal uncle, confirmed through DNA. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Isaac answered solemnly. He's my sister's son. I didn't know about him for most of his life, but now that I do, I won't fail him again. She nodded slowly. And you've provided character statements from neighbors, teachers, medical staff at Jackson Memorial, and documentation from the child's therapist, who all state that Noah is thriving under your care. Reyes stood again. We have, Your Honor, and we'd like to present one final piece of evidence. He handed over a folder, inside of which were drawings, sketches Noah had done of himself, his mother, his grandfather, and now Isaac. One drawing in particular showed a small boy holding a man's hand beside the ocean. At the bottom, in careful block letters, were the words, "Family is the wave that never leaves." The judge studied it silently for a long time. When she looked up, her eyes weren't as stern. Effective immediately, she said, legal guardianship of Noah Santiago is granted to Mr. Isaac Torres. Permanent custody to be finalized pending the resolution of all background checks and home assessments, which so far are exemplary. The courtroom burst into emotion. Charlotte wiped her eyes. Reyes clapped Isaac on the back. Noah turned to Isaac, voice trembling with disbelief. Does this mean... Isaac knelt to his level. Yeah, kiddo. You're not going anywhere. Noah threw his arms around Isaac's neck, clinging fiercely, his face buried in the fabric of Isaac's blazer. Thank you, he whispered, over and over. And, for once, Isaac didn't feel like a man defending his life's work or proving his worth through deals and deadlines. He felt like something much rarer. He felt like a father. As they left the courthouse, the media was waiting. Microphones, flashes, questions. But Isaac shielded Noah with his arm and said only one thing to the cameras before guiding the boy safely to the car. Let the story be this. Love showed up and love stayed. Then he closed the car door and drove them home. The air inside Isaac's Coconut Grove villa felt different that morning, lighter somehow. The Florida sun poured through the high windows, casting warm patterns on the polished floors where Noah now chased Mr. Whiskers, the once distant family cat who had, against all odds, fallen in love with the boy. It had been 3 days since the court ruling. 3 days since Isaac Torres had legally become something he never expected, a guardian, an uncle, a father. He stood in the kitchen wearing a rumpled hoodie, flipping blueberry pancakes, his 4th attempt this week. The first batch had been burned, the second undercooked, the third edible but bland. This one, though, looked golden. Maybe not perfect, but real. "Smells better this time," Noah said with a sly smile, sliding into a bar stool at the counter. Isaac turned and held up the spatula like a trophy. "I Googled the exact heat setting. I'm learning, Chef." Noah giggled, but then his gaze grew more thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" Isaac lowered the burner. "Anything." "Why'd you really come to the beach that day?" Noah asked, his voice soft but serious. "Was it just for your work stuff?" Isaac paused, setting the spatula down. He leaned on the counter, meeting the boy's eyes. "At first, yeah. I was trying to get away from something I didn't want to face. A memory of your mom." Noah's expression didn't change, but he stopped fidgeting. He listened deeply. "I lost her in a boating accident. She was stubborn that day," Isaac continued quietly. "Said she could handle the water, even with the storm coming. I didn't stop her, and I never forgave myself." Noah was quiet for a long moment, then said, almost inaudibly, "You think I would have been enough for her to stay?" Isaac's chest tightened. He came around the counter and knelt beside the boy, looking directly into his eyes. "She would have stayed in a heartbeat, Noah, if she had known. If I had known, things might have been different. But what matters now is this. Your mom loved you before she ever met you. I know that, deep in my bones." Noah's eyes shimmered, but he didn't cry. Instead, he whispered, "I miss her every day." "I do too," Isaac replied, his voice catching, "but we carry her with us in everything we do." A quiet knock on the door interrupted them. It was Mr. Alvarado, Noah's art teacher, holding a large envelope and a proud grin. "Good morning. Sorry for dropping in early, but I had to deliver this in person." Noah ran to greet him. "I thought you might want to know," Mr. Alvarado said, handing the envelope to Isaac. "Noah's piece was selected for the Miami Youth Exhibit at Vizcaya. Only 10 students were chosen citywide." Isaac blinked. "Wait, what?" Noah's face lit up. "My wave drawing?" Mr. Alvarado nodded. "The one you titled, 'Hearts Ride the Tide.'" The judges were blown away. Isaac opened the envelope and carefully pulled out the glossy letter. Noah's drawing had been professionally scanned and displayed at the top, beneath it. "Official selection, Miami Youth Arts Showcase." Pride flooded Isaac's chest. "You did it," he whispered. "No," Noah corrected, hugging him tightly. "We did it." Later that evening, the backyard transformed into something magical. Paper lanterns swayed from the pergola. A few of Isaac's closest friends and neighbors gathered under string lights. Mr. Reyes came by with his daughter. Charlotte dropped off cookies. Even Ruth called to say congratulations. The celebration wasn't grand. It was intimate, raw, beautiful. At sunset, Noah stood barefoot on the sand behind the house, gazing at the waves. Isaac walked up beside him, 2 bowls of mango ice cream in hand. "She would have loved this view," Noah said quietly. "She always said the ocean reminded her of second chances," Isaac replied, handing him a bowl. Noah hesitated. "Can I tell you something I haven't told anyone?" "Of course." "That first night at the beach, when you gave me money, I didn't know if you were just being nice or if maybe you were someone I was supposed to find." Isaac's eyes welled. "I didn't know I was supposed to find you either," he said, voice trembling. "But I think your mom did." Noah looked up at him, the golden light of dusk reflecting off his eyes. "Do you think I can call you something different now?" Isaac froze. "Like what?" The boy bit his lip, then whispered, "Dad." It wasn't a question. It was a hope. Isaac dropped to one knee, not caring about the sand or the melting ice cream. He wrapped Noah in his arms and held him as if anchoring them both to this moment. "You can call me anything you want," he said, voice thick. "But hearing you say Dad, that's the greatest gift I've ever received." A breeze passed over them, gentle and full of promise. Behind them, the lights twinkled. Ahead of them, the waves rolled endlessly onto the shore. And in between, for the first time in a very long time, they simply existed, together, as family. The morning sun peeked gently over Miami's skyline as Isaac Torres stood in the cavernous gallery, pulse fluttering with a tension he hadn't felt since his first board presentation a decade ago. Rows of easels displayed youthful brilliance, but only one piece truly mattered. Noah's Hearts Ride the Tide. Beneath it, a small plaque bore the boy's name, and Isaac swallowed hard against the rush of pride and nerves coiling in his chest. He caught Charlotte's eye across the room. His sister-in-law offered a reassuring nod, her own voice soft when she slipped beside him. "They're waiting for you in the front row." Charlotte's tone was warm, protective, an echo of the embrace he'd once reserved for his late sister. "Go on, Uncle Isaac." He smiled gratefully, patting her hand lightly. Noah appeared then, hand in hand with Ruth, both clad in crisp white shirts. The line of proud parents behind them was interrupted only by Charlotte's gentle presence. Isaac tousled Noah's hair impulsively, the boy grinning back with that same mischievous spark that had first stirred Isaac's heart on South Beach. He motioned for Noah to take his seat. As Isaac joined them in the front row, the gallery lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. Friends of the family, art patrons, neighbors, even the occasional local celebrity gathered for this youth showcase. Isaac's gaze swept over the assembled faces, their expectant silence amplifying his own unsteady excitement. An announcer's crisp voice echoed through the speakers. "Next, we have Hearts Ride the Tide by 11-year-old Noah Torres." Isaac's chest tightened. He caught Ruth's encouraging smile, then leaned toward Noah. "You've got this, champ." Noah's small hand squeezed Isaac's. "I will, Dad." Isaac's throat constricted. Already the word felt sacred, weighty with promise. He reached down, brushing fingers against Noah's cheek tenderly. The boy nodded once, determinedly. Then, under a single spotlight, the announcer stepped aside. Noah walked forward, his shoulders straight, eyes flicking briefly to Isaac before shifting to face the audience. Silence reigned as he uncased his easel, revealing the vibrant waves, cool aquamarine under a blush-pink sunrise, and the tiny figures cradled on its curves. Every eye in the room followed Noah as he cleared his throat, voice small but unwavering. "This is my mom's favorite place," he began, glancing at Isaac with a quiet intensity. "Before she got sick, she told me every wave was like a heartbeat that carried hope. My painting is about how love stays with you, even when someone's gone." A collective breath seemed to hold, the emotion rippling through the gallery like a gentle tide. Noah paused, his gaze lingering on Isaac's face. "My dad didn't know I existed until he saw me selling flowers to help my grandfather. But now he's here. And I know love can bring families back together." Up in the front row, Isaac's eyes glistened. He swallowed past a lump in his throat and applauded fervently, tears spilling as he cheered for the boy who'd rebuilt his world. One by one, the audience erupted into applause, soft at first, then thunderous. As the clapping washed over him, Isaac felt something shift deep within. The fortress of grief and guilt that had bound him for years cracked open, and in that fracture, light poured through. He stood, slipping off his jacket to drape over Noah's shoulders as the boy retreated to Isaac's side, cheeks flushed with triumph. "Thank you," Noah whispered, voice thick, "for always being there." Isaac gathered him in a tight hug, breathing in the warmth of this imperfect, irreplaceable family. "I'll always be there," he vowed, gently brushing back Noah's hair. "You're my heart's tide." Later that afternoon, Florida's golden glow bathed the backyard where they celebrated in earnest. A battered bounce house rose like a cheerful island in the lawn, and the aroma of grilled fish tacos mingled with laughter. Charlotte snapped candid photos. Mr. Reyes taught Connor to juggle oranges. Ruth watched Sophie coax shy toddlers into the castle. In the center of it all, Isaac and Noah stood by a low table decorated with seashell garlands. 2 cakes, one vanilla, one chocolate, stood side by side, each adorned with ocean blue frosting and sugar waves. On the vanilla cake, a tiny fondant paddleboard. On the other, miniature flip-flops. Noah looked up at Isaac, eyes wide with delight. "Make a wish," Isaac urged, handing him a flaming candle. The boy closed his eyes tightly, blew gently, and opened them to reveal a grin. "I wished that this would never end." Isaac chuckled softly, heart aching with tenderness. Neither one of us would want it to. They shared a slice of cake, crumbly sweetness a perfect contrast to the salty breeze, and Isaac marveled at how simple moments could carry the weight of lifetimes. He caught Ruth's gaze as she passed by, and she winked, mouthing, "He did good." As twilight deepened, the family drifted toward the shoreline. The ocean's hush felt familiar, a heartbeat they'd both come to trust. Noah scuffed the sand with his toes. Isaac knelt beside him, picking up a smooth shell. "This was your mom's," Isaac said softly, turning the shell over. "She collected them everywhere." Noah nodded, tucking it gently into his pocket. "Now it's ours." They walked hand in hand toward the waves, footprints trailing behind like whispered promises. The horizon glowed with promise, and Isaac felt the weight of his past slip away, carried off on the wind. In the hush of crashing waves, he whispered, "Welcome home, son." Noah looked up, eyes sparkling. Home. And in that moment, family whole, love restored, the tide of forgiveness rising, they knew the journey ahead would hold its own storms, but together they would ride every wave.